Time is one of the valuable resources in therapy and education. Dealing with time is relevant in different contexts and settings, whether music is a subject to be learned, or a means of fostering development, or as therapy. We as adults and the children and people we work and play with are often challenged by the constricts of time in particular settings. Today, I would like to present some thoughts on time that can be relevant for educational and therapeutic settings. And I would like to illustrate some of these by looking at examples from a children's group focusing on one child. As Winnicott recognized, play and playing facilitates growth and therefore health. We are all aware of the importance of play for development and learning. Here, some impressions from playful situations in music and movement sessions with different groups. Time is one of the most valuable resources. Children tend to have a different sense of time to adults. In education, this can often lead to misunderstandings if one is not aware of the difference. Children may sometimes live in their own world, their individual here and now. We may be able to get a sense of this when we ourselves have flow experiences, when we have time for these, or how it feels when they are cut short. As adults, however, we often perceive our environment as exact planning, a flood of time-related necessities, fitting in many activities into ever shorter time windows. And this can lead to misunderstandings in the perception of time, the planning of time resources, as well as individual needs. The organizational framework of schools, the timetable, as well as the planning and teaching of lessons, may stand in the way of natural child-oriented learning if we do not consider ways of dealing with time in our work. The lack of consideration of the roles that time may play may even lead to inequity, as Roger Saul suggests in his recent article, Temporality and Inequity: How Dominant Cultures of Time Promote Injustices in Schools. When we include time for play, this may be with a focus on one's own body, on a musical task or activity, or on social aspects of play. Each group consists of individuals with different modes of learning, different readiness levels, speeds, and levels of learning. Time is necessary for differentiation, as individuals need different amounts of type and support. Georg Feuser distinguishes three kinds of time in his chapter, Time and Rhythm as Basic Processes of Life and Understanding. Firstly, intrasystemic eigentime, own time, that has individual dynamics of change and movement which are particular to each system. Secondly, extrasystemic eigentime, own time, which perceives time in relation to another. And finally, relational time between two or more systems that enables exchange to take place, a dialogue to be led, and makes cooperation possible. It means bringing together the intrasystemic own time of both systems in a superordinate phase space and generates a common time that unites both. Here we can see this in the color green. As we know, music can have many functions and effects. Music or sounds from two entities, two people, may exist without the systems noticing or reacting to each other. Or it can be a means of making contact and finding a common time in music or movement. If we play music together or ask participants to move to the time of the music, we have a new time, here in red, the time of the music, to which all own time systems adapt. A further interesting topic is pauses. In one-to-one sessions and in groups, we can often observe that individual participants need to make pauses. There can be many reasons behind this, one of which I want to mention here. In an optimal situation, newborn babies search for eye contact with a caregiver and someone who reacts positively to them. The infant stays in eye contact until he or she can no longer process what he or she has experienced. The infant then turns away and makes a pause. The pause is necessary to integrate the perceptive connections as well as the emotions that have arisen. The experience can then be sorted and integrated into higher cognitive structures. It is necessary and essential to recognize the function of pauses in therapeutic and educational settings. And individual children in groups may need and may make pauses at different times. A further interesting aspect is the didactic triangle, which was proposed by Siegenthaler and Zillmann, two Swiss rhythmic teachers. Firstly, they mention impression. This may include providing sensory impressions in a session, giving impulses, creating situations, and making experiences possible in different social constellations. Lingering, dwelling, and playing. This involves starting processes and keeping them going, letting the processes work and giving time and space. This may be for individual work or with a partner or in a group. Expression allows time for spontaneity and creativity, where spontaneous or planned ideas are shown or played, which in turn create new impressions. The authors recognize that lingering, dwelling, and playing are an essential part of the triangle, so that children have time to discover, experiment, and play with ideas or content, and not just imitate. The time for lingering and dwelling is the valuable and essential time that is necessary if children are to experience, explore, and discover, and get to the inside of a particular content, such as a musical element, a particular instrument or movement, a scale or rhythm, or so on. This is also the time where they might be learning or inventing different accompaniments, teaching each other, working together, or practicing. The time for play, exploration, and practice is where children are involved in constructing their own knowledge, assimilating and accommodating. These experiences and discoveries can then be used in different forms of expression, which in turn provide the new impressions. I would like to illustrate some aspects of time focusing on Debbie, one of the children in a group of mixed age and abilities that I taught for a long time. This group is a teaching practice group at the Orff Institute. The focus in the lessons are increasing body awareness and joint attention, joyful playing together, goals that are in music, dance, and language, as well as non-musical goals, such as self-awareness, social learning communication, building self-confidence, social resonance, and social sensibility. When Debbie joined the group, it was necessary for her mother to sit also in the circle and to join in. Then, for over a year, it was necessary for her mother to sit in the room at the side and observe. Only then was it possible for Debbie to participate without her mother being in the room. Here in this photo, we see how Debbie often used to curl up or hide her eyes, especially when new content was being presented. She needed a lot of time. In the video, we will observe that Debbie does not participate in the activity. She holds onto a recorder and does not show any eye contact until near the end, but she does seek physical contact. Here, Debbie is over-challenged with the particular task of imitating and joining in and playing in time. Tumbala, tumbala, vanya, vanya, tumbala, tumbala, vanya, vanya, tumbala, tumbala, vanya, vanya, tumbala, tumbala, tum. Sehr schön. Haben wir noch etwas? Da brauche ich eure Hilfe. Vanya, vanya. Schaffen wir das beim Vanya, vanya? Tumbala, tumbala, vanya, vanya, tumbala, tumbala, vanya, vanya. When I first introduced this song, I asked the children to listen to the melody with their eyes closed. I noticed that many of them were tapping the pulse of the song. I took up this idea as a task or game with a partner, one child being the instrument and the other the player. Here we can see that Debbie has a lot of physical contact with the student teacher and plays into her hand and lets her play for Debbie as well. In a different session, we can see that Debbie understands a task that does not involve music. The student teacher shows a position on the floor to imitate the shape of a shell and encourages the children to become shells. Some children react quickly. Debbie understands the task, takes her time and is able, in her own time, to join in and imitate the position. She chooses to be near the student teacher and we can notice they communicate. The atmosphere is calm and not rushed.
Anfangsposition ist schon richtig, sehr gut. Kannst du vielleicht deine Knie noch zusammen, so ein bisschen näher, so mit Kannst du probieren? Ja, sag mir. Schön, ja, sehr gut, sehr gut. Ja? So, Dorothea, machst du mit uns? Ich, du und Viktor. Sehr gut. Und noch ein bisschen mit dem Kopf. Vielleicht das ist schwierig.
For the session with this song Tumbala, different types of instruments had been placed on round rugs in the room. The children then had time to move around, trying out various instruments and then deciding which one they wanted to play to accompany the song. Debbie chose to play a chime bar together with another child and a student teacher. They start, and then I take up their tempo, which is much slower than at the beginning of the lesson. Later, when the song speeds up a bit, Debbie is over-challenged. She is still busy with self-agency playing her chime bar and would need more time to adapt to the tempo. Debbie is obviously involved in playing and concentrating hard on her instrument. She doesn't look up until a new instrument joins the group. Later, she is overwhelmed when we all try to start together and cannot join in time. This topic of tempo is important in all groups. Whose tempo and when?
Kannst du auch am Boden spielen? Und Sami, bringst du dein Kantele her? Kommst du zu uns? Ja, bitte. Und Syl kommt auch zu uns, weil das so schön geklungen hat mit dem Boden. Das war eine super Idee. Okay, Sami, du spielst bitte mit der Kantele, ihr spielt mit dem Boden und ihr spielt mit den kleinen Bausteinen.
Wabbeln?
Ja. Tabea bitte auch. Tabea auch. Und sogar ein toller Schluss, ein Tremolo. Das macht ihr dann den Schluss. Diesmal möchte ich, dass der Sami ein kleines Vorspiel, bevor das Lied losgeht, spielt nur der Sami.
In my last example, part of a different session had been taught by a student teacher. First, she gave time and space for the children to explore, experiment, and to play with the scarves to discover their qualities without giving any specific tasks to imitate. In the video example, we will see what happens afterwards when music is added and when there is time and space for the children to react and improvise. Debbie's encounters with her partner are affective, emotional. This can be seen in her facial expressions and the social referencing glances, the reassuring looks. The task, playing and dancing with the scarf, and doing this with a partner, corresponds to Debbie's level of development. The activity is easier than playing the chime bar for Debbie. Because of this, she can open up and has emotional freedom to make contact with someone else. Time is one of our most valuable resources. The challenge of working with groups is not just about the timing of a lesson, but trying to provide the amount of time each child needs for different tasks and also the support they might need. Looking at the 3 types of time, the importance of pauses, and the importance of lingering and dwelling may help us to be able to do this. Time offers, among other things, opportunities to develop the unfolding of sensory power in teaching and learning processes, and to provide a sense of physicality in learning. Physical learning is widely recognized and prevents learning processes from being too quickly conceived just in cognitive terms. For this, we need time for play and playing. Thank you for your attention.